So today's topic is going to be dental materials. We're going to talk all about zirconia. I'm your moderator. My name is Brian Brooks. I'm the Roland Dental Solutions Product Manager here at Roland DGA. Joining me this morning, we're very excited to have our special guests from Sagemax, Katie Costi and Dan Swamy, who's CDT over there. They're both Vice Presidents at Sagemax. And with that, I'd like to welcome both Katie and Dan and let them go ahead and take over from now. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you, Brian, for setting this up for us, and thank you, everyone, for your time this morning. We do appreciate it. As Brian had just mentioned, I am the Vice President here of Marketing and Sales. I've been with Sagemax for a few years now. Really love this industry. You guys have been very good to me. Just to give you a little bit of background, I did graduate from Washington State University with my marketing degree.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Swamy, and I'm the Vice President here and the Resident Technician at Sagemax. I have a little bit of experience with the lab business. I owned my own lab for 28 years and used different products. I was very happy to use the Sagemax material. I do technical support here and also some research and development on our materials, a lot of testings to make sure that our products are up to par.
So to start out with, we'd like to talk about translucency this morning. Translucency is kind of what everyone is talking about most frequently at this point in the industry. Zirconia has made tremendous strides in the last few years, and we actually do a lot of in-house testing to ensure that the Sagemax NexxZr T material is in fact the highest translucency on the market. And we do that by performing a couple of different tests. So we do the 1 - CR value, which if you're familiar with the lava method, that's how they test the translucency. We do measure the wavelength between the 400 and 700 spectrum, and what's called the D65 light transmission. So we're talking about daylight transmission at a fixed wavelength.
Yeah, we're happy to let you know that our product is very well received on the market, and we get very nice reviews from the dentists, patients, as well as the technicians worldwide. We are currently trying to get into the market where our product looks very, very nice to everyone, to all our users. Our main benefits are the fact that our translucency is among the highest in the industry, if not the highest. We feel that we can make a very aesthetic, lifelike appearance on our restorations, incorporating all the different values on the shade guide, mostly the translucent effects on the incisals and the cusp areas. We feel that our material is ideally suited for posteriors as well as anteriors, also for veneering. It should be noted here that some of our competition will not provide you a lot of the testing results, mainly because they probably don't have those results to show.
But we do actually test our competitors, and what we see is a more opacious and monochromatic look from the competition.
One of the machines that we use, a spectrophotometer, to test translucency. This is something that will analyze translucency as well as color.
Right. And here is our X-Rite i7 that we have at our test facility.
Also, this machine is a very accurate way of measuring the 1 - CR value as well as the translucency. These are some of the prototype restorations that I was able to do at the initiation of this material. Fortunately, I was able to get very, very high translucencies on the cusp areas. I really believe that you need to have a material that is very nice, translucent, and then you incorporate your technical expertise to develop the nice lifelike results. This full arch bridge was done by Mr. Enzo Luciano in Italy, and you can see the backlighting on it and the translucent effects that he was able to achieve. This is all full contour restoration.
Yeah, it is important to note that on all three of these examples, they are full contour and there was no porcelain used.
At Sagemax, we advocate 5 different types of restorations that can be made with relative ease. These are the possibilities of NexxZr T. The TP, we've designated it as NexxZr T Translucent Polished. This is a crown that excuse me, can be done very, very quickly. It's after the milling process, it's pre-stained. It's sintered in the oven overnight using the long process or the long sintering cycle, and then it's quickly polished. This crown can be fabricated within 5 to 10 minutes. The next one is the translucent glazed. This is the same process except that it has some stain and glaze on the external. The hybrid system is called designated TH. Here we do minor cutbacks on the aesthetic zones, especially the cusp areas, and then layer it very, very quickly with enamel porcelain. And then it's also stained and glazed. The NexxZr Translucent Layered is basically a coping made out of NexxZr T, and then it's conventionally layered with different ceramics, body incisal and clears. And also the next one down is the high strength coping. This is done the same way. It's completely layered.
So we have commissioned the dental advisor actually to do a long-term clinical study for us. We have already published the results of the 6-month study where we had received a 5-star rating across all the categories, which included aesthetics, marginal, integrity, fit, wear, and yeah, I believe that was that's all of the categories. They had placed 160 restorations by the 6-month mark. So up to now, we have just received the complete 1-year study, where we're very proud to say that the study does show no wear against the opposing dentition in all 298 of the restorations that have been placed up to date.
Yeah, it's important to note here that the dental advisor is an independent group, and they use their own technicians and labs, but we're very excited and happy to get these really good results.
So quality management systems is actually something that's very important to us at Sagemax. We're proud to say that we have achieved the highest level certification for medical devices, which is the ISO 13485. And we work with BSI as our notified body in order to achieve that. The 13485 has actually also helped us to get several other certifications around the world. Of course, we do have the FDA 510K. We have the CE mark. Most recently, we have our Health Canada approval, but we also hold certifications in Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Ukraine.
And the research and development part, this is really exciting for me. We have a full-fledged test facility built into our unit for our production center here. We do extensive testing on our materials, and the idea is to test not only our material but also to test other people's materials to make sure that ours is coming out really well as far as its integrity. We have a scanning electron microscope with the Bruker technology, which is an X-ray device. This allows us to look at the microstructure as well as test every batch to make make sure that we are within the limits. We are happy to report that all our testing shows that we are well within the guidelines of FDA. We also have spectrophotometers that measures translucency and colors. We have strength testing, a strength testing machine that we can test for three-point bending tests, also the flexural testing. We have age testing. This is a very important criteria for zirconia, and we're showing that after a long period of time, there is no diminishing results. In other words, no degradation. Particle size analysis is important because it relates to the grain structure. We have several Roland DWX 50s in our test facility that I utilize from time to time to mill out units and test. We also are very happy to have the DWX4 here pretty soon. The benefits are that we can test our materials very, very quickly, and also be able to provide this information to our clients. Also, we do outside analysis and independent testing as well. Again, our competition may or may not provide this type of information to you. This is, go ahead.
This is just a picture of the machine we have in-house to do the particle size testing. So as Dan mentioned, we do also outsource some of our testing to independent labs to test for the chemical composition and the radioactivity. Radioactivity is not something that we can perform here at our facility. But the chemical composition, actually, we outsource just to, we're very confident in our results of the in-house lab tests, but we do this to ensure absolute safety of our material. As I mentioned, it is an unbiased lab. This is not something that we
just wanted to also add here, our radioactivity limits are well below the accepted level. So in other words, our material is very, very pure, and it's very safe to the patient as well as the dentist. Again, we are able to independently confirm results on an unbiased basis. We test every batch for purity. This includes the chemical analysis as well as the radioactivity testing. And also there are no heavy metal traces in our material, namely lead, beryllium, nickel, and mercury, or any other destructive elements.
And unfortunately what we see, because as I mentioned before, we do test all of our competition, occasionally we will see traces of some of these harmful elements, and we can't always be guaranteed that they are doing their own testing to prevent this sort of thing. Here's an image of our Bruker that Dan had described earlier.
It's the scanning electron microscope with an X-ray detection device.
So again, for radioactivity, this is something that is very important. The ISO standard is pretty strict, and we hold ourselves to an even stricter guideline. We test our radioactivity on every single batch of material, and we can guarantee to our labs, dentists, and patients that there is no risk of radioactive traces in our zirconia. Unfortunately for our competition, some of them we know do test once a year, but otherwise we can't always be, we know that not all of them actually test at all.
I just want to add here that we want to make sure that we provide very accurate data to our clients and that they feel very safe using our materials. Needless to say, sometimes we cannot get a lot of this data from our competition.
And what we've seen actually in the last year is a lab in Taiwan had actually gotten some zirconia from China. When it was tested, it was 4.5 times what the ISO limit was. So of course we know that's something that's very dangerous, and like I said, it's something that's important to us that we rigorously screen.
Also, I wanted to add here that we keep very good records of our testing. So if ever there is an issue of traceability, we can provide those results very, very quickly. Okay, the density. Our material is unique in the sense that we use cold isostatic pressing. Here we're pressing individual discs. Some companies will say that they're isostatically pressing, but they might press a huge log and then cut discs at random intervals or in different dimensions. This doesn't really ensure the proper density throughout the material. Cold isostatic pressing actually allows us to have a very uniform, homogeneous density throughout the blanks. This is very important. There are other competition. Our competition will use different ways of pressing, namely uniaxial pressing, colloidal processing, cold isostatic pressing in a bulk form, as I mentioned. There are some dramatic drawbacks to uniaxial pressing, namely pressure is applied from 2 different phases, namely the top and the bottom, and unfortunately the density is not consistent all the way through the material if you're using this type of pressing. Also, the hardness on the surface will not enable you to have good longevity of the tooling of the tools. In other words, you will be using your tools very, very quickly if you're using this type of material that is pressed like this. The colloidal processing method is basically adding chemicals to a batch of powdered zirconia and letting it coagulate, and then it's pressed and cut and then sent to the labs and the milling centers. This is not a very good way of processing zirconia. There are very, very unique drawbacks to using these type of processing methods because you are not going to be able to color it very well, because of the non-uniform density in the blank. Again, the longevity of the milling tools is very, very important to the user, and this is why we cold isostatically press. Even though this is a little more expensive way of pressing our materials, in general, we want to ensure that our user gets the maximum benefit.
And here's a picture of our cold isostatic press. Sagemax is very fortunate to have actually one of the largest isostatic presses. It's pretty impressive. Here's just a few more pictures of what our production facility looks like. So because we have such a high volume, we actually have several of these very large furnaces. This one is just one of, oh gosh, 6?
Yeah, one of 6. It's interesting to note here that even though there is a large quantity of material that's loaded in here, the temperature and time is very, very precisely controlled. And we will know from batch to batch how our material has performed.
So millability is actually something that is also very important to us. Dan had mentioned surface hardness of some of our competitors, particularly if the product has been uniaxially pressed. For a uniaxial press material, we're looking at a surface hardness of about 120 to 130 megapascals. With Sagemax NexxZr T material, we're only looking at about 60 to 65 megapascals. So what that means is, of course, longer spindle life, longer tool life. So not only for diamond coating tools is it increasing the longevity, but also for carbide tools. We're seeing our customers get roughly double the tool life of carbides.
Interesting to note here that in some of my tests, when I've used materials that have been uniaxially pressed, you can actually see some sparks flying off the tools after a few mils, which tells you that the surface hardness is extremely high from some of our competitors. Mm-hmm. Extended tool life, we can get well over 1,000 units with a diamond-coated tool with our DWX50s. We have very, very consistent results. We do not see chipping or breakage. The mills themselves, if you look internally, are very, very accurate with no chips. The fit is excellent. We strive to get the best shrinkage factors and values on our material so that the fit will be extremely accurate.
Mm-hmm. So not only do we test the surface hardness of our material, but we also do have the material out in the field where we do actively ask our customers and get feedback from folks who are using multiple types of milling systems, because we know that not all of them work exactly the same.
That's correct. You know, again, our competition may or may not give you a lot of this information that we would as far as the testing. Mm-hmm. Our favorite machine, the DWX50. There are times when I will run this for 24 hours at a time with very, very good results, excellent results. Stainability. We have an in-house chemist that helps me with the development phase of our materials. He's a scientist with many years of experience. We have been able to develop materials and test them. We test for microstructure with our EDX system, SEM. The microstructure that we have which is produced along with the isostatic system allows us to have maximum absorption of the coloring liquid. And this is very critical to the user because most of the issues and problems that we have in our industry as far as full contour zirconia will be related to color absorption. So we believe that we have a material and products that will allow the technician and the user to have very, very good results. Our liquids, and because of our microstructure and the formulation of our materials, our liquids can absorb by capillary action well up to as far as 5 millimeters in depth. So you don't see any white spots. I have some materials that I've tested from our competitors, and I can see really, really adverse results with white spots. We can very easily absorb colors into our material within 20 seconds.
So what we see from our competition is an average absorption of only 0.1 millimeter depth. As Dan had mentioned before, what we're seeing with our zirconia and in the testing that we're doing with our own staining liquids is a 5 millimeter depth.
Yeah, I want to also mention, because of the microstructure and the formulation of our materials as well as the manufacturing process, we are able to match the shade guides extremely well. So you can take an A2 or whatever shade guide that you want to use. You should be able to replicate not only the body colors, but also the incisal and the cusp colors. So, in other words, the shade guide will match very, very easily with the restoration.
A few more things that we see from our competition. We've talked about the ease of staining with our zirconia, having it only take 20 seconds for full absorption. We know that Other systems require significantly more time, up to 15 minutes, and some of them even require the use of a vacuum system to apply the stain.
Very good point. Also, the methods that we use here, we can just dry out stains in ambient air, and it takes only 5 minutes to dry.
So here's just an example of how it is that we're able to match the Vita Classic Shade Guide.
Whether or not you want to do multiple dips or a single dip, you will still be able to see very good results in translucency.
So aging testing is another type of test that we can do at our in-house facility. We do two different ones, actually. We do a 10-year test and a 25-year test. So what the aging testing is really looking for is called a monoclinic phase change. So we're looking at the phase change and the depth of that change. What we see when we test our zirconia is that after doing the 10-year test, it's almost 0% phase change, and we're able to keep a strength above 1,000 megapascals. For the 25-year test, we do see a 20% phase change, but the strength still stays very high at 850 megapascals. So what happens to make this difference within the industry and within aging testing is what's called high fuse or low fuse zirconia. Sagemax uses a high fusing zirconia, which means the temperature, the optimal temperature for sintering is around 1500. Our competition is using what's called a low fuse zirconia, where the sintering temperature, the max recommended sintering temperature, is 1350.
I wanted to also mention here that with low fusing zirconia, there is no built-in error factors. In other words, if it's fired too low or too high, the material loses its integrity. Whereas with high fusing zirconia, very similar to high fusing porcelains, you have a built-in range where the material will still retain its integrity and strength as well as translucency. Mm-hmm. Not so much with the low fusing. Low fusing is very temperamental material.
And most low fusing zirconia is unfortunately being over-sintered in order to achieve the higher translucency. So that would account for why their aging testing performance is so much worse, because they are not properly using the zirconia.
That's true. Okay. Strength is critical to any zirconia. Biaxial flexural strength testing is done in-house here. We have, as I mentioned previously, we have our own flexural strength machines. We do 3-point bending tests to achieve the flexural strength tests. We're showing the results of greater than 1150 megapascals, and this is consistent from batch to batch. The benefit is that we are able and capable of producing large bridges, veneers, as well as single units. Our competition shows that sometimes it's even below 900 megapascals. Sometimes very inconsistent results that we show by doing comparative testings.
And here's an image of our actual biaxial flexural strength testing. And if you go on our website, actually, there is a video up online where you can actually see the test being performed.
Yeah, you may want to ask, why do we perform all these tests? Our goal is to provide a very consistent material from batch to batch. And this is why we painstakingly do a lot of these testings in-house.
The shrinkage of our material is something that is extremely important to us, as we feel it's actually very important to all of the technicians out there. Sagemax actually goes through the effort of testing every single zirconia disc that we make. And we do that to ensure the accuracy, that every zirconia unit we make has the exact right shrinkage for that unit. What we see from our competition is they tend to test just one batch. So you might get several hundred units that all have the same shrinkage. But what that means for the consumer is it's not entirely accurate. Each piece should be measured because each piece is going to be just a little bit different. And what that would cause is actually a bad fit and possibly even an uneven shrinkage value across the zirconia blank.
As you know, in our industry, we need to take marginal integrity and fit as granted. You have to have those two factors in any type of material that you're using. And if your marginal integrity and your fit is not there, the material just doesn't work, obviously.
So for our technical support, we have a pretty well-rounded staff here at Sagemax. Of course, we do have Dan Swamy, who is our CDT in-house with nearly 30 years of experience. We've got several engineers here and zirconia specialists who have been working with the material for over 25 years. The benefit to all of you is that we are capable of supporting all phases of producing a dental restoration. With our competition, it's not always the case. Sometimes they're not always accessible either because they're in another country or they just don't have the technical expertise.
Yeah, as a user of any type of material, it's important for a technician to get really good advice. I've experienced this firsthand in this industry. If I run into some problems, if I don't get consistent advice or even some basic help, it just doesn't make my life very easy. So that's one of my jobs here, is to make sure that our clients get good advice and good technical support.
So of course our zirconia is made at our facility here in Washington State. This is our headquarters, our worldwide headquarters, our manufacturing facility, our technical support, and our in-house laboratory is all located at the same facility. We're in a small town called Federal Way, just about a half an hour south of Seattle. Now, what we had kind of touched on a little bit before is the radioactivity, and one reason I bring that up again is because what we find worldwide is that more and more dentists are concerned about the origin of their zirconia because of the high radioactivity levels that we're seeing from manufacturers in China and Korea. So we want to kind of put their mind at ease a little bit. We offer two different kinds of certificates or authentication, if you will, to our customers. We do have the NexxZr certificate, but we also provide our users with the NexxZr sticker. This NexxZr sticker actually, we have not seen it duplicated at this point, thank goodness, and we are taking steps to ensure that only NexxZr users have access to this, so that the dentists and the patients can feel secure in knowing exactly where their zirconia has come from.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that because of the good, consistent results and the end user experiences, our material is getting very, very well accepted.
So here's a picture of actually what our facility looks like on a very nice day in Seattle. Please visit our website. Again, like I said, there is a nice video where you can see the flexural strength being performed. That's at sagemax.com. And we really appreciate your time this morning.
Yes, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, guys. We actually have a little bit of time here. We had a couple of questions come up during the presentation. If you don't mind, maybe we can kind of go over those just real quick here.
Sure.
These questions are just a couple that came up during the Stainability. One of the questions was, were you talking about multi-layered or dipped when you're talking about the penetration?
Yes. You can do Depending on the needs of the technicians, you can do a multi-layer dip. For example, you can divide the restoration into thirds. The gingival third, let's just assume that you need an A3, A3.5, A3, and an A2. So you would dip the gingival third first for 10 seconds. Take the restoration out and then wipe off any excess. Re-dip it for another 10 seconds with a different colored liquid, and then invert the crown, and then dip the occlusal third in a different color. So in other words, A3.5, gingival third, A3 is the body, and then the A2 would be your cusp areas.
Okay. Let's see. What are your thoughts on staining pre-sintered with a brush?
Yes, that's what I was referring to. This is all green state staining.
Okay.
You can also use the staining methods. Yeah, there's no problems with that. Because our material has a very unique homogeneous density, you can paint on several layers of stains and it will absorb very, very easily. So yes, you can graduate the colors by painting them on also. You can also use different incisal colors and effect colors. For example, blues, grays, violets, incisal universal. Paint those on first on the occlusal surfaces, and then you can do a dip also in conjunction with the paint on.
All right.
Hopefully that answers.
Do you guys have your own staining liquids?
It's something that we're in development right now. We're actually in the testing phase.
Okay. Let's see.
My point in all of that was that if you have a very nice material to work with that is developed properly and has all the integrity of the materials such as translucency is built in, the user can apply his or her expertise to create a very, very nice aesthetic look to our material.
Excellent. Let me see here. How about, one of the questions was, what some of the, you were talking about the radioactivity and some of the zirconia. Do you know why some zirconia maybe from China has a higher radioactivity than Sagemax, for instance?
It's actually a different grade of zirconia powder that's being produced. Zirconia powder goes through several different chemical washes in order to eliminate all of the harmful elements, and including any radioactivity particles. That is part of it. Another part is actually where the raw zirconia in its natural state is coming from. What we find is zirconia coming from Australia has the lowest radioactivity levels.
All right. How about which staining system right now would you recommend with the Sagemax product?
I think, Brian, that is really truly dependent on the user. I find that people can use just about everything that's out there, but they need to experiment a little bit to see how much color absorption they're getting. It's also dependent on the thickness of the material too. So a thicker crown will absorb liquids a little bit slower, or there will be less intensity. I advise my customers to make test strips, actually, of varying thicknesses from 1 millimeter to 1.5 millimeter, because that's basically the thickness of the axial walls on the crown, and as well as the occlusal surface. And I advise them to dip with different liquids and different dilutions to figure out what they're gonna get as an end result. In other words, it's really important for them, whatever liquids that they choose to use, it's very critical that they test it out first.
That makes a lot of sense. That's always a good idea there. That looks like about all the questions we have. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. So once again, there's the Sagemax information on your screen. You could always email me as well. I can always put you in contact with the great folks at Sagemax. My email address is bbrooks@rolanddga.com. The next webinar we wanted to talk about is going to be November 5th. For those of you who haven't heard the news, we actually launched a new dental mill last week, the DWX4. Our website has quite a bit of information about that product, and it actually is already out on the, or it's being launched out on the market. It is available. So we're going to kind of give a webinar tour of the machine itself. You can also visit Sagemax and Roland will both have booths at the upcoming DLOAC CAD/CAM event in Garden Grove, California. That's going to be on November, what is that? November, I just wrote it down and now I'm missing it. November 15th, Katie? 15th and 16th?
Yep.
Okay, and then Roland will have another booth at the Greater New York Dental Show, and that's going to be at the Javits Convention Center December 30th through the 4th. Both of these shows will have the Sagemax material in their booth, and then we'll have the DWX4 in both shows in the Roland booth as well. So I wanted to thank once again our friends from Sagemax, Katie and Dan, for joining me this morning. I think this is great for all of our partners out there to kind of understand that not all zirconia is the same, and there's some differences that people should be aware of. So I hope they take this as a great educational tool. So thank you guys once again, and thank everybody for joining us this morning. And please join us again on November 5th for our next webinar. So thank you very much. Yes,
we would like to thank you and Roland for this opportunity, and we want to thank all the participants also.
Well, you're very welcome, and we appreciate it all. So and thank everybody for joining us this morning. Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.